Hey young friends, Dr. Bill here once again. I am so glad that you could join me for today's lesson. Once again, we're going to do a lesson that will help us be better prepared to celebrate the birth of Christ. So, today I want to focus on some of the major characters in the story of Jesus' birth. And these characters will help us understand what faith in God really looks like. Let's begin with Joseph. Joseph was engaged to Mary, and then suddenly he finds out that Mary is pregnant. She's going to have a baby. Joseph knows that the child isn't his, and so he decides that he will break the engagement and he will end his relationship with Mary. But because Joseph is a good person and a very compassionate person, he decides that he will do this in a way that will not embarrass Mary. He will do it in a way so that she won't be held up to a lot of ridicule and scorn. Well, Joseph, having made that decision, goes to bed one night, and as he's sleeping, an angel appears to him in a dream and says, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take Mary as your wife. What's going on here is the work of God." And so when Joseph awakened from his dream, he decided to act on what the angel told him. He decided then and there that he would take Mary to be his wife, and he wouldn't break the engagement. The second person is Mary. Now, Mary was very, very young, and an angel appeared to her out of the blue one day and announced that God wanted her to bear the Christ child, to bring the Christ child into the world. Now, the scriptures tell us that this was very unsettling for Mary. She was terrified by the sight of the angel, and she didn't fully understand everything that the angel was telling her about the birth of the Christ child. So Mary was filled with a lot of fear and uncertainty. Nevertheless, as the scripture tells us, Mary put those things aside and she said, "Yes, I'll join in with what God is wanting to do. I'll participate. I'll be the mother of the Christ child." The third group of folks that I'd like to focus on for this lesson are the wise men. These wise men were from a country somewhere to the east of what we know as Israel. They spotted a star, a unique, dazzling, brilliant star in the night sky. And because they followed the stars in the heavens, they believed that the appearance of this kind of star meant that something very, very important was happening, most likely the birth of a new king. So the wise men decided that they needed to go and find out what this star meant, what news it was bringing. So they saddled up and they followed the star in the night sky. They had no way of knowing where it would lead them, where it would take them, but still they made the journey. They started on a trip without a map and not at all knowing where their destination would be. So these three figures, these three characters, illustrate what it means for us to be faithful, what it means to have faith in God. Let me tell you what that means. First and foremost, faith is something we do. Faith is action. Notice that all three of our characters did something. Joseph said, "Okay, I will take Mary as my wife," and that's exactly what he did. Mary said, "Okay, I will say yes to God and I will allow myself to be involved in bringing about the birth of the Christ child. The wise men, having seen the star, saddled up, and they made a trip, not knowing where they would wind up. So as you can see, all three of these people did something. They acted. And that tells me that faith is not just what we think or believe in our heads. It's not what we feel in our hearts. First and foremost, faith is doing something. It's being obedient. It's launching out when we believe that God is up to something. We do something. We act on what we believe we've heard from God. So faith is something we do. And then the second thing is this. Notice that for all three of these figures, all three of these characters, they did not have a detailed plan of what was going to happen. They did not have that detailed plan in advance. God did not lay out a blueprint and say, if you say yes to this, if you decide to do this, if you decide to take this journey, this is exactly what's going to happen. God did not map out every step or every part of the adventure for any of them. No, what God said was, I just want you to take the first step. And when you take that first step, then you'll know enough to be ready to take the next step. And that's how faith works. We rarely understand when it comes to following God or being obedient to God, we rarely get a full understanding, a blueprint, if you will, of what our decisions are going to mean way down the road. No, God gives us enough light or just enough of a push to take a first step. And in essence says, trust me, when it's time for the next step, I'll show you what you need to do. So, Joseph, not knowing what it would mean to take Mary as his wife, signed on for that first step and took it. Mary, not knowing what it would mean to be the mother of the Christ child, simply said, yes, I will give my body so that the child may be born. She didn't have a blueprint of what was next. And certainly the wise men, they started out and they simply began their journey with that first step, believing that they would have enough light for the length of the journey. So, all three of these characters illustrate for us what it means to be a faithful person, what it means to have faith. And that's why when we tell the story of Jesus' birth, we celebrate these characters because they model for us. They show us what real faith looks like. Well, that's it for today. I am so glad that you could join me. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'd be happy to talk with you anytime or anywhere. In the meantime, I wish you nothing but the best for this day, and certainly wish you a very, very Merry Christmas. Take care, and bye-bye.